Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into a really interesting story. It's about how one organization, well, pulled itself out of data chaos.
Yeah, found some data piece, you could say. We're talking about First National Bank. Okay, it's a made-up name.
Yep.
But the story itself, very real world.
Exactly. It's all about how they use data contracts to completely transform their data change management. We've looked at some articles, some blog posts.
To piece this together.
Right. And think of this as your shortcut to understanding this powerful concept, data contracts, but told through a narrative, a relatable story.
Mm-hmm. And our mission, really, is to show you how these contracts can, genuinely revolutionize how you handle data, especially in a context that probably feels familiar.
So to do that, we're focusing on three key people at this bank. We've got Sarah, the data analyst.
Always battling those dashboard disasters.
Then there's Ben, the data engineer.
Constantly putting out data fires.
And Emily, the data product manager, just trying to get reliable data products out the door.
And their initial struggles, before the contracts came in, they really paint a picture of the kind of data chaos many places face.
Oh, definitely. So let's set the scene, pre-data contracts. The data environment at First National Bank was unpredictable. That's putting it mildly.
Yeah.
Let's start with Sarah, the analyst. Imagine her day. She comes in ready to find insights, and bang, dashboards are broken. Again.
Just a constant headache, right?
Totally. Hours, sometimes whole days, just gone. Trying to trace back what changed, why the numbers look weird, why that key chart is suddenly empty.
And it's not just the time wasted fixing things, is it? It's about trust, or the lack of it.
Exactly. If the dashboards are always wobbly, people stop believing the data.
Which means decisions get stalled, everyone's double-checking everything, progress just grinds to a halt.
Yeah, and you hit on something key there, this idea of trust. Data contracts, fundamentally, are trying to rebuild that trust by making data dependable.
Right. The sources we looked at really highlighted how these shaky data ecosystems come from broken assumptions. Sarah was living in a world where, say, data transformations just happen without warning, assumptions constantly broken.
And then you had Ben, the engineer, his life before data contracts, a never-ending cycle of firefighting.
Sounds exhausting.
Imagine some application team makes a small change upstream, adds a field, changes a data type, whatever,
Seems minor, maybe.
but without any formal agreement, that tiny change could just crash Ben's data pipelines. No warning, like dominoes falling over.
And that really points to the danger of tightly coupled systems, which our sources mentioned. When everything's tangled together without clear rules, one little tug can unravel the whole thing.
Yeah, Ben must have felt like he was walking on eggshells, scared to make needed updates because, well, who knows what might break downstream.
That's a great point. It creates this fear, this inertia. And here's maybe an aha moment for you listening. Data contracts try to decouple things, create clear boundaries, clear expectations for how data moves between systems.
Okay, so analysts struggling with trust, engineer fighting fires. What about Emily, the data product manager?
Right. Emily's job is to make sure the data products think customer analysis tools, fraud detection, that kind of thing actually work and meet user needs. High quality is key.
But before contracts, a constant battle.
Yeah, imagine trying to build a solid house with shaky foundations and blueprints that keep changing. That's kind of what Emily faced. Inconsistent data coming in, no clear understanding between the teams making the data and her team using it.
Made her job incredibly tough, I bet.
And it slows everything down, right? This links back to innovation speed. Without contracts, you're just reacting. Emily's team probably spent ages cleaning up data messes, building up technical debt.
Less time building cool new features, more time fixing problems.
Exactly. So another key insight. Data contracts can seriously boost development speed by cutting down that data friction.
So let's recap the chaos. Sarah's dashboards, unreliable. Ben, always reacting, putting out fires. Emily, struggling to build good products on shaky data. It's all assumptions, uncertainty, wasted effort. Okay, clearly something had to change. What was that turning point?
The turning point was really them realizing they needed a more structured, formal way to handle things. And that's where data contracts entered the picture.
Okay, so what is a data contract, fundamentally?
Think of it like a formal agreement, like a service level agreement, but for data. It's a clear set of rules between the data producers, the teams creating the data, and the data consumers, the teams using it.
It covers everything.
Pretty much the essentials.
Yeah.
Structure, the schema, the meaning, the semantics, what quality level is expected, and crucially, who's responsible for what.
Right. It moves data management from guesswork to, like, a defined partnership.
Exactly. Proactive, not reactive.
So how did First National Bank actually start implementing this? What were the first steps?
Well, collaboration was key. Based on our sources, this wasn't top-down dictation. It involved getting the application teams, the data producers, talking to the analytics teams, the product teams, the consumers.
Actually sitting down together.
Yeah, figuring out what data do you really need? How should we provide it? Maybe using something like change data capture, CDC, so you only get the changes, how often, and who do you call if something looks wrong? Getting those points of contact sorted.
Okay. Makes sense. Talking is good.
But then they made it concrete. They moved towards using configuration files like JSON or YAML to standardize these contracts.
So machine readable.
Exactly. That opens up automation possibilities down the line. One source even showed a simple JSON example listing the source, the fields, update frequency, ownership. Really practical stuff.
And what did those early contracts focus on?
The fundamentals, mostly. Defining the schema, the columns, the data types, the basic blueprint, and the semantics, what the data means, is quantity in units or kilograms. Super important. And probably some initial thoughts on basic quality rules.
And a big shift, I imagine, was around responsibility.
Huge shift. Suddenly, the teams producing the data were formally responsible for its quality and for sticking to the contract. No more just tossing data over the wall and hoping for the best. Clear ownership. Accountability.
Okay, so they've laid the groundwork, got these initial contracts in place. What happened next? Did things change quickly? What were the early wins?
Oh, the impact was pretty dramatic, especially for our three main characters. Let's take Sarah, the analyst.
Fewer broken dashboards. Please say yes.
Yes, a big reduction. Because the schema, the meaning, it was all defined and actually enforced now. She could finally start relying on the data again.
Trust rebuilding.
Exactly. Expectations were clear. And she could even look at the contract changes proactively. If a producer proposed a change that might break something, she'd know before it happened.
Nice. What about Ben, the engineer? Still fighting fires.
Much less. Those unexpected pipeline failures from source system changes, they started to disappear. Data contracts brought in things like versioning for the schema.
Ah, so managing changes properly.
Yeah, right. And compatibility checks, making sure upstream changes didn't automatically break downstream consumers. Ben also got a much clearer map of dependencies, who used what data, because it was all in the contracts.
And I think you mentioned integration into their development process.
Yeah, some sources talked about integrating contract validation right into their CI/CD pipelines, catching breaking changes automatically before they even get deployed. Huge win for Ben, from reactive firefighter to proactive problem preventer.
Okay, Sarah's happier, Ben's sleeping better. What about Emily, the product manager?
Big improvements for her, too. Collaboration with the producer teams got way better because the contracts provided that common language, that shared understanding.
Tree specs help everyone.
Totally. And that meant more reliable, higher quality data products, which meant happier users. And remember that technical debt we talked about?
Yeah, the time wasted fixing data issues.
That went down, which meant Emily's team could actually move faster, deliver new features, innovate more. They could finally focus on the product, not just the problematic data feeding it.
It sounds like the contracts weren't just documents, but catalysts for better processes and maybe even new tools.
Absolutely. To make this really sing, organizations often bring in tools, things like schema registries, a central library for your data structures, and validation frameworks tools that automatically check if data matches the contract.
Keeps everyone honest.
Pretty much. We even saw mentions of contract-first development,
What's that?
where the consumers, like Emily's team, actually propose the contract they need first, they define what they require, and then the producers build to that spec.
Interesting. So it really builds this whole ecosystem around the contracts. Okay, let's make this even more concrete. Can you walk us through an example of a data change?
Sure. Let's use a classic one. An application team at First National needed to add a new field to the main customer table. Say, customer Sensayet.
Okay. Before data contracts, that could have been trouble.
Exactly. Might have broken reports, models, anything downstream that expected the old structure. Chaos potential.
So how did it work with data contracts?
Much smoother. Step 1. The application team doesn't just add the field. They update the data contract first.
Defining the new field clearly.
Right. Name, customer Sensayet, data type, maybe some notes on the format, what it actually means. It's all documented in the contract update.
And then the automation kicks in.
Yep. Automated tests would run against that updated contract, check for backward compatibility. Will this break existing consumers? If it's a non-breaking change, great. If it is a breaking change, it gets flagged.
Flag for review.
Flag for review, communication, coordination. You don't just push breaking changes silently.
Right. And the consumers, like Sarah and Emily's teams, they get notified.
Crucially, yes.
Yep.
They see the contract update. They know this new field is coming, or that an existing one might change in a breaking way. They get notified before the actual database change happens.
Giving them time to adapt.
Exactly. Time to adjust their reports, their code, whatever they need to do. It's proactive notification, proactive adaptation.
So instead of a surprise outage.
You get a managed, transparent evolution of the data. The new field rolls out smoothly, or if it's breaking, everyone coordinates the updates. It really flips the script from reacting to problems to proactively managing change.
That makes a lot of sense. So that's the immediate change process.
Yeah.
What about the bigger picture? The long-term impact at the bank?
Well, over time, the overall quality and reliability of their data just went way up. Fewer errors, more consistency, because the standards were clear and enforced.
And the collaboration piece.
That definitely improved. Better communication, shared understanding between producers and consumers. It fostered a more unified, efficient data culture across the whole bank.
And for the business itself, what did they gain?
Agility. Less time fixing data messes meant faster time to insight, quicker, more confident decisions.
Freeing up people like Sarah, Ben, and Emily to do more valuable work.
Exactly. They shifted from being reactive firefighters to being more proactive, more strategic. That's a huge benefit.
And bringing it back to you, the listener, you can see how this kind of transformation, driven by something as seemingly simple as a contract, can really change the game.
Yeah, it provides that clarity, that structure in what can feel like a really complex data world. It reduces that feeling of being overwhelmed, lets people focus on using data, not just battling it. Hopefully, hearing about Sarah, Ben, and Emily gives you some of those aha moments for your own situation.
Absolutely. So looking at this whole story, this deep dive into First National Bank, it's pretty clear data contracts aren't just theory. They offer a really solid way to manage data expectations, handle change better.
Big improvements for analysts, engineers, product managers. We saw clear benefits for all of them.
Ultimately, it looks like data contracts help build a much more dependable, collaborative data environment there.
Yeah, and when you think back to where they started, the unreliable dashboards, the constant fixes, the struggle to deliver trustworthy products, and then you see the turnaround they achieved, it does make you wonder, right?
It really does. And that leads us to the final thought for you listening today. Considering the struggles we talked about and the success First National Bank found, what's holding you back from perhaps exploring or implementing data contracts in your organization?
What are maybe the first small steps you could take just to start moving towards that more reliable, more collaborative data environment?
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.